Absolutely.
Hi, everybody. I'm Pasha Kane with Raise the Bar in Real Estate, and I'm so excited to have Jake Pimley here from Fairway Mortgage. We are so fortunate to have the Pimley team in our sales meeting every week, just bestowing us with some industry knowledge, what's happening in the market, what's happening in the economy, but then how does it translate into real estate? Um, and Jake was kind enough to come on the show today and be our guest. And Jake, thank you for coming. And yeah, tell us a little bit about how you got into real estate and kind of where you're at today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So how did I get in? I kind of fell into it or defaulted into it. So my mom was a real estate agent. My dad was an electrician. My grandparents had some apartment buildings. And so when I went to college, fell in love with finance and econ, and that's what I ended up majoring in. Came out, thought I was going to be a financial advisor. That was not a good fit. And then, my mom's like, "Hey, go talk to these mortgage guys, and they're doing really well, and it seems really like something you'd be interested in." That was 21 years ago, and I haven't found anything else to go do, and it's been a good journey for me. So, really enjoy the real estate side of things and investing and some of the other things that we've been able to do. So yeah, it's been a great run.
Yeah, no, it's really impressive how long you've been in the lending business and mortgage business. And then, I'm sure you've seen some amazing, cycles and down cycles and up
Yeah.
cycles. So just with that, what are your thoughts right now on the market today? And just reflect a bit about how you're seeing buyers' behaviors and sellers' behaviors compared to past, like, um, you know, phases in our real estate economy.
Yeah, so when I came and started in this industry, so I'm coming out of college, it would have been 2004 is the first year I started. So we kind of had that run up into '08, and then '08 happened and everything kind of melted down. And that was a really kind of quick flip and obviously very devastating for a lot of people. What we're seeing this time is this kind of slow burn, right? So we had this really fast run up in prices. Everybody's trying to readjust. Everything's become more expensive, not just in housing, but groceries and kids' sports and all of the other things that takes to live. So that jump in interest rates, it's one of the fastest increases we've seen, or it's the fastest one I've ever seen. Rates are definitely the highest that I've seen in my career. And so it's just taken this big adjustment for people. Wages will catch up, but they're slow. And so things will become more affordable over time. I don't really foresee rates coming down anytime soon. I do think we're in kind of a longer term, higher interest rate environment, inflationary environment. The last time that we saw this was in the late 70s, early 80s. That was kind of a 10-year cycle of inflation. But that doesn't mean it's a necessarily a bad thing for real estate. From 1971 to what rates were 7.73%, and took until 1993 to get back to that. So almost 22 years of higher interest rates. But during that time, home prices went from 28,000 to 148,000. So it's 500% increase in home values during this what's supposedly a really high interest rate environment. So on one hand, while you're paying really high rates, the values continued. Um, and if you kind of look at what's going on now and the supply side constraints in housing, um, maybe continued supply side constraints with tariffs that are potentially happening, values in real estate are probably going to do something similar to that.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's really a astounding like insights. And you mentioned tariffs, and I know that's got everybody a little bit on edge because this is kind of uncharted territory for us to have something this extreme.
right.
In your mind, what do you think the impact's going to be on real estate and on the everyday consumer who's looking at buying and selling a home?
I think we'll see it mostly show up in new construction. That's where aluminum, steel, lumber, that's where you're going to see the price increases, your remodeling costs. So people, if you're going to stay in your home, you're going to put in new wood floors or, LVP, like that's going to have an impact. So I think you'll first see it in new construction. I'm not so convinced that the tariffs actually will happen. I think this administration is trying to use them as a tool to negotiate other things, whether it be border or other stuff. But I do think that there is some protectionism built into that where they want to preserve American jobs, American production. That does result in higher production costs. So I do think we'll see it. It's too early to tell how much, but it does have the potential to be inflationary. So again, higher rates for longer, but as those things go up, so will the home prices. What's really important is what happens with wages, right?
Mhm.
So as long as wages continue to rise and we see wage increases, then it remains relative affordable, right? So it's your real purchasing power that we have to watch out for, not necessarily what the house prices do. So
What are some of the indicators with wage prices right now increasing? What do you see specifically, even to Oregon?
yeah, we're seeing wages increase as people try to retain talent. As companies try to retain talent, wages are very sticky. You think maybe you only have a wage review once or twice a year with your employer. So there's not very much opportunity to try to increase your wages. So wages historically have been very sticky and slow to respond to inflationary periods like this. So hopefully over time, we do have a lack of good talent in a lot of industries. It's very difficult for employers to hire. I've spoken to several who, they're talking about relocating because they need to be around the right job base. It's why we see Nike and Columbia and Keen and all of these people all around the same place is because we have a talent pool that's here and that they can hire from. So when you start getting companies competing for talent, you will see wages increase. It's just slower. And so you feel that pain as the consumer. Maybe your job hasn't increased wages, but eggs are more expensive. The kids' sports are more expensive. The cars are more expensive. So you just feel it faster.
Yeah, totally. Um, going back to the buyer, what are some of the options they have to keep their monthly payments down? I know when you visited the office, it was really, I think, informative to the toolbox that's out there.
Right.
So can you speak to that a bit? Um, what buyers what choices they have to keep their monthly payment maybe at a little bit more of a moderate level?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of new tools come to the market, and some are old tools that are coming back to the market. One being the temporary buy down, which I think is a little bit misleading. It's really a payment subsidy. So, for example, you could do what they call a 1.0 buy down. So that if your rate was say 7%, we treat it as the payment as if it were 6% for the first year. And that payment difference each month is pulled out of an account that is set up either by the seller or in some cases the lender to subsidize that payment for the first year. And you can extend that out to 3 years. So you can go 3-2-1, you can do 2-1. So let's say you do that 3-2-1. If your starting rate was 7%, the first year your payment would be calculated as if the rate was 4%, which is a really significant savings.
Yeah.
For example, I just did one for a client who's been looking for a home for a number of years. The payment was a little higher than what he felt comfortable with, but we were able to get the seller to do a 2-1 buy down. And that really put his cash flow monthly where he felt comfortable. He's a government employee, and he knows he's getting 5% raises or 3.5% raises, whatever it was, as part of his contract. And that really allowed him to keep his net cash flow after his payment in place, even once those rates adjusted, and allowed him to buy today. And the goal being is that we think that value of that home is going to go up. So he was able to negotiate a larger credit than we would have been able to 2 or 3 years ago when things are crazy. So that kept his cash flow in place, but also allows him to control, a $500,000 asset that hopefully is going to appreciate at, 3, 4, 5% over the next 10 years.
Oh, yeah, that is I think again, just looking more at the bigger picture. And I think that's what you guys do so great is just kind of showing people what their options are. Um, and then in terms of like down payments, I think people sometimes get really stuck on the size of the down payment they have to bring to the table, and it can be a bit daunting. So any
Yeah.
like how to kind of maybe whittle that down, or where they could what are some options with down payments to help secure a property?
Yeah, so we have several down payment assistance programs. Typically, those are needs based, so you have some level of income limit on those. Oregon has a really great down payment assistance program that they rolled out in the last couple of years. We're seeing more and more people use that, but it's got a relatively low income limit comparative to, say, other states. Say Washington's, I think, is about 180,000, where Oregon's is like 115,000 a year for family income. So a little bit more restrictive, but it's a really great way to get into the housing market. We're doing more and more of those. We have other down payment assistance programs. Like we just rolled out a new one. I haven't even done one yet, but it's combined with solar. So if you put you can add, it's an FHA loan and you add solar panels to the house, you can add that cost of the solar panels to the loan amount, and then they'll give you a certain amount for your down payment, and then you have to like follow up with some survey stuff. And it's a nonprofit that's trying to look at how can we invest into solar, reduce your overall monthly expenses, and then help you recoup some of that money that you put into the house. So that's a relatively new program. Like I said, I haven't even done one yet. We just had a webinar on it a couple weeks ago. Not sure it works real well on our West Coast type
Yeah,
stuff, like out of the coast, but in our Bend and Sun River markets and places like that, it might work really well.
yeah.
But that's kind of some of the stuff that we're seeing, right? We're seeing people come up with new opportunities, new ideas. One of the traditional things is, look at your 401ks. Does it make sense to borrow from there? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not necessarily advocating one way or the other. Family gifts funds, but conventional loans are only 3% down.
Mhm.
FHA is 3.5% down. USDA in the rural markets is 100% financing, and then of course, VA is 100% financing if you're a veteran. So there's a lot of options. I've had some people do some crazy things to come up with their down payment, things that I wouldn't advocate you do. But there's all kinds of different ways. So if you're thinking it's only 3% down on say a $300,000 house, that's 9 grand. I mean, going to get a rental with first and last and deposit isn't much more, much less than that right now. So
Yeah, that definitely gives you perspective for sure. Yeah, and yeah, the rental market too is pretty right now pretty tight as well. And prices are, well, actually they're kind of being stabilized more than I think increasing at the moment. But
right.
so other areas where you hear a lot about is HELOC and refinancing. What's the
Right.
climate around on that right now? Are people using HELOCs? Are they refine? I mean, yeah, what do you see going on in those two areas?
Yeah, I mean, rate's only one factor in financing a house. So if you can't afford to eat, if you can't afford to send your kids to school, you can't afford to buy a new car, if your rate's 2.5%, that's great. But if you can wrap in high interest credit cards or pay for other things, we are seeing people tap into that equity.
Mhm.
And sometimes that makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. That's a very case by case situation, but most people, given the values of their homes, have a fair amount of equity. And so we're seeing people touch that either through just a straight up cash out refinance or HELOCs. We're seeing a lot of HELOCs. We've brought on a lot of new products for that. Those can make a lot of sense if you're going to hold the property long term. They are more expensive per month, but as far as interest rate, but seconds have always been more expensive. So yeah, they're a great tool if used properly. They are opening up a lot of opportunities. I just had somebody who used a second to go buy an investment property that they're going to make a really great return on. So it doesn't really matter what they're paying.
Mhm.
Um, I like your friend over there.
I know
He's trying to steal the
help
show.
herself. I even closed the door and somehow she wiggled through.
She's found her way in. So
Yeah.
no, the HELOCs are great. I think that one place that people get hung up on is in the consumer and I think that's the media is what are the rates, right? The rates kind of dictate or give you the gauge of what the market's going to do. And in my opinion, rate is only one part of the equation, right? You've got price, you've got affordability, it's still your home. If we're talking seconds and HELOCs, what are you doing with the money? Are if you're paying 9% on that, but you're paying 25% on a credit card, then 9% is cheap, right?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
just depends on what you're trying to do. And unfortunately, the media pushes like the rate as being the gauge, and that's really just one variable of a much larger financial picture for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, no, that's really insightful because I think there was such a I think a lot of people were tapping into their equity and it doesn't seem as prominent as it used to be.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think every little bit is just paralyzed at the moment,
Right.
and one thing I know I we observed is the people who have the 3% mortgage rates right now and watching their behavior just a lot of them are just like they don't want to give that up. What's your observation about that market at the moment? Do you see it kind of maybe warming up a bit of these potential sellers making a move, or are they really firm on holding on to that rate?
Yeah, yeah, that's what the lock-in effect is what everybody's calling it or
Yeah.
terming that, right? So you got this low rate, and so you're locked into that. You don't want to move. If you do try to decide to move, you're just paying more. Um, we are seeing that kind of start to break down. I mean, people have to they get new jobs, they have to move areas, they have, they get married, they get divorced, they have more kids, they life happens, they need to move closer to family. So again, rate is only one part of that variable in your larger financial picture. Um, the further we move away from those low rates, the less of an impact that kind of lock-in effect will have. But we are seeing people trying to hold on to those properties like, oh, I've got this really great rate, I want to keep the money, I want to keep that as a rental, I'll cash flow really well. Not everybody's cut out to be a landlord, not everybody wants to do it. I've been a landlord for 25 years now, and I've got all kinds of good stories and all kinds of bad stories, and it's in a second job. I mean, um, it takes effort, and so not everybody really knows what they're getting themselves into. Um, and the landlord tenant laws in Oregon, Washington are very tenant friendly, and so you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. We've had some friends who've had some issues, and it's cost them. So I don't necessarily advise that unless you know what you're getting into or working with a property manager or a good professional that can help you. Um, but yeah, the lock-in effect is real. It's really exacerbating the supply side issue that we have in our industry, and that's part of the reasons that I don't see values coming down anytime soon.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, very true. What would be your advice you'd give to buyers and sellers, for 2025 and going with this climate that we're in currently?
Yeah, I mean, buyers, and this is something that I believe personally is, the best time to buy was yesterday, right? So the longer that you're in the market, the better off you're going to be. And the stats prove that as you go back. Now, if you're going to be in the market a year, like let's say you've got a temporary job or you know you're going to have to make a change, timing becomes very important in that situation. So maybe you don't buy right away, or maybe you do something a little different. But if you can buy something and hold on to it over time, I mean, the people that I know that bought in 2009, that I helped buy in 2009 when everything looked terrible, the guys that held on look amazing right now. Like they're laughing, and every month they cash those rent checks. They think it's amazing. So,
Yeah.
um, if you can hold on, then the best time to buy was yesterday. Sellers, you got to work with good people. You got to work with an agent who's, like yourself, who's going to help them market the property the right way, who's going to get it ready, maximize that value, be prepared for buyers to come in and want to ask for things. Um, Go on at the right time, of the year. Like we're seeing right now that things are selling really well, which is traditionally kind of our slower times of the year, and sellers are actually getting pretty good, pretty good offers from buyers because there's just not much to choose from.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is really interesting because I think it's just kind of we're breaking all kind of traditional cycles right now. And one,
Mhm.
inventory is really low. And I mean, to your point earlier, people's have life changes and they have predicaments where they have to move. So and they have to buy or they're just restless. The recency bias is gone. So it's good to see, yeah, people kind of getting back into the game because as you mentioned, prices are only going to accelerate, especially if rates come down. We're going to see all that pent up demand just go crazy. So,
Yeah, we saw that a little bit in September, right? When right before the Fed met the first time, the rates improved, kind of anticipating the Fed lowering, and October, November were really strong purchase months, and rates really didn't stay low for very long. In fact, as soon as they actually lowered them, mortgage rates increased. So it was
Yeah.
just that anticipation of the market of things getting better. We saw a lot of buyers enter the marketplace. We saw a lot of inventory go away, and yeah, October and November were really strong months.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, the takeaway is, yeah, we're in a new climate. The rates are here to stay, and there's still great deals to be had, but yeah, we don't expect prices or rates to come down because just the where the market is right now.
Mhm.
So, but well, thank you, Jake. I mean, you're always dropping so many great gems and insights, and I know I'll go back and listen to this again because there's
Good.
so much value in it.
Yeah.
So thank you for being on today. I had one last question though.
Yeah.
What what advice would you give to your younger self, knowing what you know today? Don't worry, ask Kylan this too.
Yeah. Buy more. Yeah, just buy
Yeah,
more.
right.
That would be but really invest more in yourself, right? Like a lot of what you hear today, or just kind of the traditional advice is, you know, max out your 401ks, get some other investment vehicle. Really focus on how you can invest in yourself and increase your revenue and your income personally. That's going to be your highest rate of return, whether that be learning, how to program or whatever skill set or certificate you can in your job, learning how to flip houses, flip cars, whatever it is that you're doing, invest in yourself first. Worry
Mhm.
about that stuff later, because if you can increase your earnings early, that's a huge win. So yeah, just focus on how you can increase that through additional education. I mean, a 4-year degree is great. I mean, I have one and it was really great for me, but there are so many different ways and so much more education beyond that that you can actually earn money with, or increase your earning potential.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just have to keep reminding our kids that, right?
I'm trying. They don't necessarily listen. I'm trying.
I sure don't know.
Yeah, yeah. They all want to
Um,
be YouTube stars now. So
oh my God, yeah.
yeah,
Yes, we
which I
definitely
mean,
have that.
yeah.
Well, where can people find you? I really want to make sure, we get to promote you and Fairway Mortgage. But how can people find you and reach out to you so they can hopefully connect and you
Yeah,
can
just go to my website. It's just my name, jakepimley.com. That's really easy. My cell phone number, email, and stuff are all on there. So you can just go to that website and find me there. I'm happy to jump on calls, talk to people, even if they're not ready to buy or just have advice. Always happy to have a few minutes with someone.
I appreciate that. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being on, and I'm sure we'll have you back again.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Anyways, thanks everybody, and until next time, be
Yeah.
good. Talk to you
All
soon.
right. Thank you.